25 minutes before 9 o'clock today on Open for Debate. We are not doing the normal programming approach. We are instead going to speak to Bernie DeCastro. As you know, he is running to be the next sheriff of Marion County, today being Election Day, one final campaign visit. I don't know if this is his last one. He'll explain in just a minute. But did you know he's also the founder of Time for Freedom? And did you know he was appointed by Florida Governor Jeb Bush to the Task Force on Self-Inflicted Crimes and the Drug Policy Advisory Council and the Faith-Based Advisory Council and the Ex-Offender Task Force? He's also the founder of the Florida Ex-Offender Reentry Coalition and, again, a candidate for Marion County Sheriff. Bernie DeCastro, good to see you. Good morning. What a day for you, huh?
Yeah, what a day, Larry. Thank you for having me on, and it's good to be with you and Robin as always.
It's like I've been watching a runner prepare for a race, and you are booking it. You've got everything going. Your legs are moving right now.
Yeah, they really are, and it's been a long, arduous journey. We're here at the end, and we're hoping that the voters will get out and turn out and want a real change in the Marion County Sheriff's Office, and they'll vote for me.
Now, the one thing we were talking about before we went on the air was the decision made yesterday by Judge Singbush.
Singbush.
Did I say his name right?
Yes.
In which he didn't want to rule in your favor because there wasn't a precedent set.
Right.
And we were wondering, well, how could you do anything if precedents aren't set? Every precedent has a first time.
Exactly. Yeah, he took the easy way out, and he basically left it up to the appellate court to decide if I decide to go in that direction. So he just decided to pass on the issue, and really it's a shame because Judge Singbush, he's a good guy, and but he lives in this community with those 8,000 plus disenfranchised voters who this morning are going, well, my vote is going to be taken away from me because I didn't vote for Chris Blair. I voted for Dan Kuhn, and now my vote is going to be taken and given to Chris Blair.
Yeah. And you mentioned something before we went on the air about the people who did vote for Dan Kuhn probably were not supporters of Chris Blair.
Yes.
Now, we don't know that.
Right.
But that was a pretty heated race between the two of them.
Yes.
And usually you were one or the other. You weren't say, well, either or. It wasn't that. The way the chips fell, though, as history will record it, is that Mr. Blair was put into the spot that Dan Kuhn had been nominated for.
Right.
The one thing I disagree with you on, with all due respect,
sure,
is the sign at the voting place.
Yes.
I do think the voters should have that piece of information.
Right.
It actually might help you.
Yes.
Because if somebody were to say, well, I didn't know that.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, in all honesty, there were actually originally 4 arguments. We were number one, we were contesting his eligibility, and then but the strongest argument was the second one, is the voters. They're having their votes taken away from them. The third argument is the one you just mentioned, which was really not that strong to begin with, because the Cobb case, which Singbush referred to and relied on for precedent, the Cobb case really dealt more with that issue as advertising, and there was precedent for that. And then, of course, the fourth issue was contingent on the other 3 issues. If the other 3 issues fell, the fourth automatically fell. So there was really only 2 issues. We actually pulled the first issue, questioning Blair's qualification, so left it down to 3, and the big one was the voter disenfranchisement.
Was there any reason why there wasn't just simply a separate election, like maybe in January or something like that?
Well, like I said, Judge Singbush just took the easy way out and then decided. Now, see, what happens is, let's say I lose by a slim margin. Okay, then that's automatically grounds for an appeal. If I can show that had the voters had a chance, then I would probably win the race. There's a good chance that the 5th District Court of Appeal will overturn it, or the Supreme Court of Florida would overturn it if I decide to pursue it that far. I'd rather not do that. I'd like to bring resolution to this issue, but then again, I'm convinced that I'm the best candidate for this office, and for me, and to also to look out for the voters of Marion County. I've had a lot of people tell me, Bernie, don't drop that issue. Keep pushing that issue. keep pushing it because it's a bad law. First of all, the law is very nebulous. It doesn't really speak to that issue. It should have said even if the word, Judge Singbush relied on the word any. The legislature should have addressed that because, first of all, it's unconstitutional to take somebody's vote away from them. You know, once the word is out that there's a replacement and then your vote will go to the replacement, different story. But before that, you know, that whoever wrote that language, it was a badly written law, and it actually needs to say any votes cast prior to a replacement, those people get a do-over. They get the supervisor elections should segregate those ballots and send those people a new ballot, reprint them with the names of the right people on there, and let those people then choose who they want.
And nobody wanted to do that.
No,
I'm
of course
guessing.
not.
Okay. So today, what's on your schedule for today? Are you campaigning all day today?
All day today, yes. I'm leaving here, going to the polling stations, and doing just campaigning till the last minute, and then we're going home. And my team and I, we're going to watch the elections from there. I'd like to say a couple things, if I could, Larry. I would like to tell your listeners something that I've known Chris Blair for over 20 years. And nothing in this is personal at all. Probably after it's all done and said, whoever wins, hopefully that, we could still be friends. So there's nothing personal in this, but the sheriff is the most powerful elected official in the county. The sheriff can actually arrest a sitting senator. He could arrest the president. He could arrest anybody, the governor. I mean, I know the governor really is his boss, but if the governor were to actually come in here and say, violate your constitutional rights, a constitutional sheriff would actually have the right to arrest him. He probably would get fired, but, that's a chance he'd have to take if he's a constitutionalist. So he's the most powerful elected official. And when I went to Chris Blair back in March of 2011, at that time, I wasn't even thinking about getting in a race. And I asked him this one simple question, which was, if you were given an unconstitutional order, would you obey that order, or would you keep your sacred oath, because it is a sacred oath, to uphold, support, and defend the Constitution of the United States? And his answer to me was, it all depends. Let's use another analogy. Let's say two people go to the altar to get married, and the preacher asks them to take their vows, and one of them says, well, it all depends on whether I'll live up to my vows or not. This is a sacred oath that he's taking. In the case of marriage, you're only taking a vow to one person. In the case of the sheriff, you're taking a sacred oath that you're going to protect the rights of every citizen in your county. And for him to say it all depends on what? Which way the political winds are blowing, or what? So that's what got me in the race originally. And then 2 weeks ago today, we were at WESH TV, and Greg Fox, the commentator, basically we got into this thing about what would happen in a situation like Katrina. And so he asked Mr. Blair, and Mr. Blair said, well, it would, he danced around the issue as he dances around most issues instead of giving a direct answer. And then he said he would seize the weapons and then afterwards properly return the weapons to the people who they were taken from. So he wasn't saying he would take them from the bad guys. I mean, that's his job to do that, or any sheriff's job. But he was saying he would do the same thing they did in Katrina. And then when we had about a week later, we had at the Tea Party, he said that I was lying, that I had edited that video and put words in his mouth that it wasn't true. So I just told people, I said, listen, don't take my word for it. Don't take his word for it. Go to WESH, go on there, and just type in Marion County Sheriff's debate and see for yourself exactly word for word what Chris Blair said. So between the fact that he's going to waffle on whether he keeps his oath and the fact that he would take people's weapons in a situation like that, I am extremely concerned. This is a strong Second Amendment county, and I just think that if the people know that it'll make a lot of difference in which way they vote. So I just need to get that out. That is not mudslinging. That's nothing personal. That is a two serious issues that people need to think think about and consider before they cast their vote.
Yeah, there's one thing that scares me is having the good guy unable to protect his wife, his family, his children, and all that. Yeah. Do you want to go to the phone? Do you want to do phone calls or
not really?
No. Okay, we won't do phone calls then. Okay, so today, as you're campaigning, I have a question for you. You right now are speaking to talk radio listeners. I truly believe they're a different type of a voter. They pay attention. They know.
Right.
How hard was it to reach the music listening radio? And I'm not saying they don't pay attention, but not as much as the radio, as talk radio.
Well, and that's you're exactly right. It's a great point. What I did to do that was I went and visited a lot of the bars like AJ's downtown, O'Malley's, Tilted Kilt, because that's where the younger crowd goes. And we were very popular with that crowd. We were extremely popular. And one of the reasons why was because of the stance on the DUI checkpoints. And most of them don't agree with people driving drunk, just like I don't. I certainly don't agree with that. But what's the real issue here is the violation of a person's Fourth Amendment rights. What most people don't realize is that the police have no authority whatsoever to stop somebody going down the road. That's called a violation of your Fourth Amendment right, unless they have what is called probable cause. They have no right to stop you at all.
Even like a checkpoint on New Year's Eve?
Well, see, the U.S. Supreme Court said that as long as they put an ad in the paper the next day, then that makes it all okay. But the United States Supreme Court has come down with a lot of bad decisions. For example, Roe v. Wade, and so just because the U.S. Supreme Court says it doesn't make it right. That's a violation of your Fourth Amendment right. And the other danger to that is it gets you desensitized to having your rights.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a tough call, though. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. If you were sheriff, New Year's Eve, you know there's going to be some sad stories tomorrow morning.
Right.
Maybe you can nip some in the bud with a checkpoint.
But here's a better way to do that.
Okay, good. That's what I want to hear.
Let me tell you. If the listeners want to do their research, and I would highly suggest you don't take my word for anything, just do the research. Go up to your Google bar and Google Berkeley, California 2010 DUI study, something like that. Those words, any combination of those words will work. In 2010, Berkeley, California did a study on all the checkpoints that had been done in California for the year before, 2009. Here's what they concluded. 1,600 checkpoints had been done. They had collected $40 million from the citizens of California in revenues. They had given $30 million of that to their law enforcement officers. And here's listen to this. They confiscated 24,000 vehicles. And when it was all said and done, you know how many people they arrested for DUI? 2%. 2%.
Okay.
Now, Larry, had they just taken those same officers, I don't know if you've ever driven by a checkpoint, but you go by one, there would be 20, 25, 30 officers all huddled up. Most of them are just sitting there talking to each other, and you got a few that are actually talking to the people in the cars. Had they taken those officers and put them by bars and just say, okay, watch the people who are coming out, and if they start swerving or driving crazy, they would arrest a lot more than 2% and keep the highways a lot safer by doing it that way.
I got you. Now, let me ask you something. This is just an observation as a driver. I don't know that any statistics, but it seems to me like one big one I have a big issue with is Highway 40 between here and Daytona.
Yes.
It seems to me that it's almost left up to the highway patrol.
That's right.
To regulate the driving of that road and probably all the roads.
Yeah.
And the sheriff's department is not that visible there.
Right.
And here in town, the Ocala Police is, but outside of the city limits, it seems like it's all left up to Highway Patrol.
Highway Patrol, exactly. And that's another bad policy I think that the Marion County Sheriff's Office has, is I know a couple of instances. One, a good friend of mine, his wife broke down on one of these back roads out here in the county, and what happened, somebody rear-ended her and took off.
Yeah.
Hit and run. Thank God she wasn't hurt. And so a deputy eventually came along, Larry, and they started talking to her. And the guy drives off, leaves her in the lurch right there, and it happened at 11:30. She didn't get any help till about 3:30 in the morning. And because of this policy that the sheriff's office has, that they're not going to get involved in traffic accidents. I mean, that is just the most inflexible policy I've ever heard of. You know, you got to use common sense, for God's sake, and that's something I would change as sheriff of Marion County. I would say we're going to be flexible in this. I mean, you could have had right down the road at Dunkin' Donut had a couple of officers in having coffee and donut, but they're not going to get called to the thing because it's the policy. We don't deal with traffic.
Would anything change if you are elected with the actual working conditions of the deputies?
Yes, it would change. One of my first things would be to, one of the things Blair and I agree on is the top heaviness of the organization. And I believe that there's way too many chiefs and not enough Indians. We agree on that. And that there's too many people making the big bucks. Like, I think there's 23 people who make like $2.4 million in the hierarchy of the organization. And our deputies are some of the lowest paid in the state. I think the first thing you want to do is look for ways to give them more money. They make 28.6, and it's just bad. It's I mean, they can go to Sumter County, one county south, or Alachua County.
$28,600. That's what
$28,600, and they could go one county north or south and make about $10,000 more. So it's hard to keep good people here, and so one of the things I would do is to look to find ways to increase their pay without increasing taxes on the taxpayers. One of the ways I think that can be done is we are locking up people in the county jail at $47 a day for just crimes that you pay $47 a day to lock up an armed robber, a rapist, a murderer. Right. You pay $47 a day for locking up a guy for smoking a joint of marijuana or for a non-moving vehicular or driving on a suspended or whatever. We've got to start applying some smart justice policies which smart justice is a national movement, bipartisan, left and right, working together, saying what we're doing is not working. We've got to start applying those kind of principles here at the Marion County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, and so that brings up a question I've always had about that, what you're talking about. In my mind, a law enforcement agency and a law enforcement officer has the duty to enforce the law by the title, not to make the laws.
Right.
So if the law says you have to arrest the guy with a joint,
right.
I mean, don't you have no choice?
Well, what I would do as sheriff is I would say, listen, you have to prioritize. We don't have an unlimited budget. We don't have a cash cow in the backyard. You have to prioritize. Let's go after, and I think this is what the citizens want. They want to be safe. We have an 11-minute response time, Larry, which is about the national average. So what can we do? Let's go after the really dangerous criminals. Let's put the emphasis on that. Something that Chris Blair was saying that I also agree with is the warrants division that we don't have anymore, the street crime unit that we don't have. Those are things I think that should be put in place. We were in Marion Oaks a couple weeks ago. There's like 2 deputies out there for 10 to 12,000 people. So we need, and there's a lot of gang activity out there. So let's start focusing on where the violent stuff is happening, and then that way it kind of deprioritizes the lesser things, and because you just don't have an unlimited budget. You've got to focus on keeping somebody smoking a joint of reefer is not making you unsafe, but somebody with a gun in their hand running around trying to steal stuff from people is.
Right.
So it's just a matter, for me, of priorities.
So would you work, I guess, with the legislators? Would that need to be something they actually decide
I would definitely raise my voice. They'd hear my voice, that's for sure.
I'm sure you would.
Because, listen, let me tell you something. It's a known fact, Larry, that, all the studies have been done. The empirical data has been in for years that treatment is more effective when you're dealing with people with substance abuse issues. Okay, and so it's cheaper and it's more effective. So hello. I mean, so we've got to start applying things, and we got to start using smart justice principles, which we haven't been doing in Marion County. We've just been going down the same road, doing the same old.
Bernie, for the sake of those just tuning in, and we got 5 minutes, so I want to make sure you get that whole 5 minutes and can do a final campaign speech on these airwaves anyway. Bernie DeCastro is our guest right now. As you probably know, he is running for the office of Sheriff of Marion County. His opponent is Chris Blair, and if you haven't voted yet, that's your choice today. I think there's a writing guy, but nobody's mentioning him.
Right, no, he was just put in there to keep the Democrats from voting in the primary. That's all.
Okay. So Bernie, it's yours. You've got
Thank you,
4.5 minutes here.
First of all, I'd like to give my my website out, www.BernieDeCastro, my name, 4sheriff.com. Now that's the number 4, Bernie DeCastro, the number 4 sheriff.com. Now earlier I said that, and also one other thing, there's an ad in today's paper that has a phone number at the bottom. And what I said was, if anybody voted for Dan Kuhn and did not want their vote to go to Dan Kuhn, they can call that number after about 10 o'clock this morning. That number will be available to call in, and they can say, I'll just leave a message on there saying, I did not intend for my vote to go to Chris Blair. I voted for Dan Kuhn, and I would like somebody to call me on this. And they will get, they have to leave their name and their contact information. They will get a return call. We want to know how many people are out there that happened to. So those are two things. Look in today's paper, look at the ad, and get that number and call us in. Now, the thing that I want you to do is go to my website, and there, right on the front page, there's a video you can watch, the WESH video of when Chris Blair and I debated on Channel 2. And you'll see for yourself that, number one, Chris Blair has said out of his own mouth that if given an unconstitutional order, it would depend on whether he would keep that or follow that order or not, which is very troubling to me and should be also to the voters of Marion County. And the second thing, and very, very important, because we have so many gun owners in this county, is that he said in a situation like Katrina, he would seize the weapons, and afterwards he would properly return them to the people, just like they did in New Orleans in Katrina. Those two issues alone, I think, are extremely disturbing, and that anybody that takes those two positions should not be qualified to be run as sheriff. Those are not minor issues. Those are major issues.
All right, and so the phone number is for those who voted for Kuhn, and their vote will now count toward Blair, but that's not what they intended.
Right, 840-9606. 840-9606. Call that number if you voted for Kuhn and didn't want your vote to go to Blair. But wait till after 10 o'clock this morning before you do that. That line will then be open, and we will record it, and then someone will get back in touch with you.
You were on Buddy Martin's show yesterday.
Yes.
And before we went on the air, I wasn't able to listen to it, so you told me that you had made a challenge, and do you want to repeat that?
Right, yes, I would like to. I challenged, because Chris Blair has been telling people that I was lying about the video, that I edited the video, and so many words, put words in his mouth. So the challenge I issued to him, and I reissue it to him right now, is if I am lying, I will resign from the race immediately. If he will resign if I'm not lying, and then the people can go up and watch the video and see who's telling the truth.
You know what, Bernie, when you first got into the race, I said to you, this is the most interesting race.
Yes, you did.
And I had no idea how interesting it was going to get. It is clearly an interesting race, and I do feel like I'm witnessing somebody who has really worked hard at winning a race, like a foot race in my metaphorical mind.
Right.
And you are booking it, man. You're moving your feet. And so is Chris, as a matter of fact. It's an amazing thing to watch. So
yes, we both want the job. And by the way, I don't want the job because I need a job. I have a job. Okay, and in fact, I'm giving half of the salary back to wounded law enforcement and wounded in action vets. So it's not about the money for me.
Wow, and you've got a lot on your plate already that you're doing. If you become sheriff, will you assign somebody else to delegate your other duties?
Oh
to
yeah,
somebody else?
right. Yeah, I have a great staff. I have a great director. 10 years with the Department of Corrections, and an assistant director, 25 years experience.
Bottom line is, whether you are or are not elected, you're definitely making a big difference in our world. Clearly have taken your own life and made it better, and are helping other people to find that same path.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's a very, very cool contribution, Bernie.
Thank you very much.
I'm honored to know you and to call you my friend.
Thank you. Feelings mutual, brother.
Good luck and everything.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a little break and be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala. The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Wear it, Florida. Times of class.